there.
and
Nobody gets elected.
they lose their morality to a deep state called the military-industrial complex.
Yes, but most importantly, after Israel was created, it was always Israel. Israel is the agent of money god. Before even George Washington times, and I did that analysis, by the way, in my pharmaceutical book one, number one book. I showed that all the presidents puppets. But after 48, after Israel was created, it's puppet of Israel. All of them. No exception.
Yeah, they are the puppet of money, not the puppet of Israel. Because
That's right. Israel is the agent.
Yeah. And beside all of this, I think that there are some lessons that we should take.
So, Mr. Ahmad is asking questions.
Yes.
He says that he has heard that there are communities like think tanks,
Yes.
or other, which are not revealed, which are not exposed, but they are, planning to run the world.
The Masonic.
Missionary.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
The
that's true.
Satanist.
Yeah, he says.
As early as 1950, what, 75 years ago, they said, I have that on my Facebook, I'll actually post it. In the Senate, they declared, 75 years ago, in the Senate, they declared that there will be one world, one government world, with one government. You like it or not? By force or naturally?
Yeah, he says that most of them are Jewish people.
Absolutely.
So it is true.
Yes. Just look around and we'll discuss some of this, how those, they are very few in number.
They are few in number.
But they buy. Today, the number of, it's a very simple conclusion. Who has all the wealth, real wealth, is a Muslim world.
Yeah, like.
They have the fake one. They're
Petroleum.
controlling it, but real wealth is in Muslim side. And we'll see some of those examples. So how did they get that? Because all the leaders, without exception, are bought.
Mm.
And that's how, not only the leaders are bought, all the so-called scholars are bought. Just like Bani Israel model. And Prophet Muhammad said that they will follow the footsteps of Bani Israel. We see played out at all levels, from little mosque in Bangladesh to a grand mosque in Saudi Arabia. It's the same model. And what is the biggest thing that is stopping them from talking about Islam? Fear.
Mm.
They fear the near. That's why I posted something today that you cannot have fear and do research. If you're afraid that what you'll find out, it will hurt you, then it's done. No way you can progress. And that's what the West plays with that. They said, I'm giving you money, your job is to prove that I'm right. That's research. All of them, 100%. All of them will find out at the end, they said, funded by this company, this agency. So what do they give the money for? Not to find the truth, find the way we can make more money. So if you do not obey, if your conclusion is something else, then you will not get funding next time. So are you going to do any research? No, there's no research done. Research is not finding truth at all. Research is between which one will make them more money. That's the money question comes first. So we'll recite today Baqarah
17 to
21. Yes.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون أو كصيب من السماء فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت والله محيط بالكافرين يكاد البرق يخطف أبصارهم كلما أضاء لهم مشوا فيه وإذا أظلم عليهم قاموا ولو شاء الله لذهب بسمعهم وأبصارهم إن الله على كل شيء قدير يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون صدق الله العظيم.
Allah continues to talk about Munafiq or Bani Israel, which applies to 72 out of 73 groups among Muslims. It's the same technique. Don't think that Munafiq is a small group. They are the majority. And the Prophet predicted that. So, what did they do? They lie. I'm mentioning that. They lie about their intention. They mock real moments. Can you imagine Muhajir, they're calling them Sufaha? So what kind of crazy people? They gave up everything to come here. Right? It's a very familiar tone.
Leave their hometown, sacrifice whatever will they have.
Doctor, what are you doing here? Would love to go to Canada. And you came here? Are you crazy? It's the same technique. They mock them. So Allah said, no, Allah is the one who is mocking them. Muslims do not mock them. Prophet had a list of munafiq. You know that. Did he attack anybody? He was even ready to go to the janazah of the leader of munafiqun. Allah stopped him. Isn't it true?
Exactly.
He knew, he had the list, yet he could not act. This is the difficulty. If you know munafiq, you know their action is telling you they're munafiq, but you cannot act. You cannot tell them that, why are you doing this, brother? Because it doesn't work. So that's the sunnah. So Allah is saying, what? Very clearly, dumb, deaf and blind. This is the one that makes you lowliest of creatures. In Quran 8:22, Allah makes it very clear that if you do not use your akal, you become dumb, deaf, and you're the lowliest of creatures.
Okay.
Allah is. So what happens with them? Allah removes their light. Then they're just blindly going back and forth, and that we'll see today what happened to the people. They're blindly following because they do not use their akal. They do not even think, so why am I doing this? What is it doing? Why are you praying and then conspiring against the Prophet? Who is asking you? So don't be quiet. So what happens? They have this slight light, then they start to walk. So they see something, they move. What is Allah's reaction? In 1736, Allah said, do not move until you have knowledge. Do the opposite. Only time they move when they have no knowledge. There's blinding going. Exactly opposite to what Allah ordered. Then what happens with that? When there is no darkness, they stop. If you have real knowledge, would you worry? No, you have already figured out your path. So, another thing they do is in 18, in 17, 17, when there's a thunder, they close their ear. What are they afraid of? Of death.
Yeah.
Remember I said fear is the biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do certain thing against Allah? Because we think that my risk will be cut out. That's why every sin is geared by fear of something. You steal money because you're afraid that you will not have enough. That's why I repeatedly said fear comes from shaitan. It has no logic. If you know risk is fixed, why are you afraid of it? Even in matter of marriage, why do you have to rape or violently be aggressive? If it is in your color, it will happen. If not, it just end up being killed. Nothing happens. Then Allah tells us that He is the creator who created us, the ones before us. Why? So they become worship Allah, that's the purpose. Worship meaning obey Allah with love. As a result, what happens? They become muttaqi. Munafiq has no intention of becoming muttaqi. It's remotely not in their mind. But here Allah is not addressing only mu'min, He's addressing nas, every human. Every human Allah is offering to be muttaqi. Imagine that. So, from this class on, I thought I posted the first part. Every day I would share. Remember what I said in the beginning? I will recite from Quran, Hadith, and my experience. And it's very clear from the beginning. So here I'll be sharing every class experience that I had in terms of coming to know the truth. Because I already have 400 papers. But the next 400 papers is after realizing what real research is. That process I would be sharing every day, one slide, and sharing with you my experience, and then you can see where I'm coming from. Research, as you know, is to answer questions. If you have no research question, you have no research. And Prophet Muhammad says, cure to ignorance.
It's just question.
It's very simple. Even in the West, it's recognized. Every research proposal has a research question. What are you answering? If you have no research question, there is no need for research. So that's fundamentally research. You have to have questions, you have to find answers. What better place to ask questions, to answer the question? Where do you look? West tells you look at literature. What is the only true literature? Quran. What is the next true literature? Hadith. See, this is the problem. If you start to look at literature, what people have done, you have no idea if it's the right thing to do. So how do you know what is the right thing to do? Because Allah said, do not say anything until you know the facts. So how do you know the facts? From Quran and Hadith. That's first logic. Second logic is both deductive and inductive logic. We mentioned that deductive is theoretical, inductive is from practical, from experiments or things that are going on. They both have major and minor premises. It's logic 101. You have to have two, otherwise you don't have anything. And you can look it up, deductive logic, inductive logic, they always have major and minor premise. Which major and minor premise is the only truth in the world? Only truth as a first assumption.
Yeah, la ilaha
illallah.
illallah.
This is it. It's very logical. That's why I keep saying, what is the first assumption? You know what is our first assumption? Shahada. If Shahada is not correct, nothing is logical for us. So we are saying that we have Iman because we strongly believe that this is it. This is the fact.
Sir, just something came to my mind. If you call it assumption, meaning that we are assuming it.
Yes.
But, so how you can call that assumption? So
It is not.
We trust it.
Assumptions. See, this is why you have to see what is the logic of Ibrahim alayhi salam, inductive logic, right? It's very simple. He assumed that something bright is God.
Mm.
See, he's coming to the real assumption, real truth, but he needs a starting point. So he assumed that it was bright. So he thought sun is the bright one. Next one, when sun went down,
Yeah.
he also assumed that that's not true.
Yeah.
Who told him? He has to have an assumption. Nothing is, for instance, if I ask you what is your name, you said Sanagu. If I believe you, I assume that you're telling me the truth. It doesn't mean that it's absolute truth. I have already assumed that you're telling me the truth. And you assume that your father told you the truth. Otherwise, nobody can guarantee your name is Sanagu.
Mm.
So this is the thing. Only time Allah said anything directly is Shahada.
Mm.
So if that's a lie, then we're messed up. We're
So
nothing like.
it means that assuming something, you do not necessarily
Believe
have
it.
some doubts.
Yes.
So
Either way, assumptions are subject to verification.
mm.
Right? So Ibrahim alayhi salam assumed brightness. Think about it. He assumed that brightness is a sign of God. And then what did he conclude? Allah is the one. Does he know Allah is bright? He doesn't. So at the end, you have to have something that you have inside. And the only book that tells you have inside, you have Iman is in you.
Mm.
You're born with it. That's why you say, go back to Fitra, you find Allah.
Mm.
See, Ibrahim alayhi salam, that's the first, by the way, first inductive logics example in history.
Mm.
With inductive logic, he concluded the right conclusion. Prophet Muhammad, Iqra, the first word is Iqra, is deductive logic. It's theoretical. This is the last one. He did not see anything.
But when he was doing that thing,
Yeah.
then he was not. He had not become prophet.
No, when he said he became prophet, that's why he was asked to read Iqra.
No.
Ibrahim.
Yeah, Ibrahim.
Very good question. I really wonder. Okay. When did he become Ibrahim prophet? Did all the 240,000 prophets even know that they're prophets, or they're giving the revelation inside? We do not know. If you have answered, you can find out. But I do not know. Prophet Muhammad, we know precisely when he became prophet, right? But for Ibrahim, we do not know. For Musa, we do not know.
For Musa, there are verses in Quran.
I know, but before that, when he was killing, was he getting revelation?
Yeah,
no, we don't know.
Yeah,
He got the book much later.
Yeah, exactly. So
This is the point. So this is an open question. I don't know when Ibrahim got his first soup. We do not know. But if it was necessary, Allah would have told us. Right? But this is both deductive logic, inductive logic. So when you're making an experiment, you already has assumptions in it. That's why we're building blocks. People don't realize that. Everything has an assumption. So both point to Shahada and both point to Quran and Hadith. So it's not a new thing I invented. If it is not from Quran and Hadith, it's not true. It was known all through history. Only new science made it. But even Newton, to his credit, he wrote more books on religion. So don't be surprised that I'm talking about Quran and Hadith, because this is a fact. Throughout history, they knew that Allah's book is the source. And every book came with the prophet. The minor premise was always there. Otherwise, Allah would have dropped a book and bang, you would just follow it. It makes no sense. So, Stephen Hawking was how do you know Stephen Hawking as? Scientist, right?
Scientist.
Yeah,
Physicist.
exactly.
He's the
First
top
of all,
physicist in modern time. Yeah?
First of all, he was an agent of Shaitan, but he also did many things in cosmology.
I know, getting there. But
Yeah.
what is he known for?
For his
What is he famous
Hawking
for?
radiation.
Huh?
He created
Hawking
cosmic,
radiation.
Hawking cosmic radiation.
But what is his
Haw-
most
Hawking
important
temperature.
contribution? Big Bang Theory. Right?
What about
big-
black hole? Black hole.
Black, all those came from Stephen Hawking's Big Bang Theory, and that after Einstein, Stephen Hawking never got a Nobel Prize. And there's another story. You know that, right?
There are
You
some
never got
other
Nobel.
hypotheses put forward. There are some creators, for example, which are unknown to us by the
Aliens.
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 Why?
Aliens.
That's possible, I don't know. But it's a peculiar character because he's most famous scientist today. I mean, he's dead. But after Einstein, he's the most famous. But even though he got no Nobel Prize, right?
Stephen Hawking
Yes,
himself.
yes. But unlike Newton and Einstein, he was atheist. He said there is no God. Newton did not say that. Newton wrote a lot of more on religion than science. Einstein was known to be a believer. He believed in God. But Stephen Hawking breaks from it. He said there is no God. Right? So, but yet, this is the list of his questions. You see, we're talking about research must have questions. So what are the questions he is asking? What is the purpose of existence? You see, he doesn't believe in God, but he's asking for purpose of existence. You see the problem?
Yeah.
Then, what is the purpose of existence in the universe, of the universe? Why is the universe created? See, they all love to ask why questions to Allah. But the Allah that they say do not exist. So who would know the purpose of creation? Allah, no? Right.
Jinna illa liya'budun.
But he said it doesn't exist. So why on earth you are asking this question? You see how Shaitan is very illogical? You first said Allah doesn't exist, God doesn't exist. Now you ask what's the purpose? So when you talk about purpose, that you're acknowledging that it's a creator. Whose purpose? But you said there is no creator.
Yeah, exactly. So
Universe created by itself. So why are you asking?
wonderful.
Nobody advances the logic. Nobody calls him crazy. They're busy calling me crazy for pointing out. You see the point? This is called internally inconsistent. This is crazy inside. It's no meaning. When did the universe begin? Why? Why are you asking this?
We also don't know when the universes began.
Exactly. And that's why Omar said the very famous saying that what happens in our galaxy is none of Omar's business. What does it matter to you? You have to pay bills, you have to raise your children. What difference does it make? You see, Christians always fail for this nonsense, and they said Adam was 10,000 years old. Now they say 100,000. Now recently they said it could be millions. We do not know. They start finding tall creatures. I posted on in Japan. There was a tall tribe or something like that. But nobody says who would know when it was created? Who would know the purpose of life? Who would know what was created first? Here is this book sitting there. The only book that remains intact for the oldest book. Even if you do not accept it's from Quran, it's from Allah, it's the oldest book. The only book that uses science as the third most used word. So why don't you just look? Is it that difficult? Many scientists do, and they become Muslim, including my research associate. I told you. But others are just, this is completely lying. He doesn't. He is not real interested in that question. He's interested in impressing people. People say, "Oh, mashallah, he's a great scientist."
Your intention was not.
Exactly. You can back calculate the intention. It cannot be finding the truth. Otherwise, if you wanted to find the truth, it's very easy. Same. When did the universe begin? How was the universe created? You see? Created. Who created man? He said there is no Allah, there is no God.
Yes, creator.
Why are you saying created? So how can you understand nature? Wow. Now he's interested in understanding nature. But you already said there is no nature that was created. You already know. He already said it was a big bang, hydrogen molecule became all this, and it's, he knows everything. So if you're asking the question, how, Mr. Hawkins, how did you get the answers? He wrote book on every topic. Where did you get the information, man? So nobody tells him that why are you BSing? They tell me that why are you talking about Islam so much? Because there is no other place. You see, you're a scientist. Why don't you tell him why are you asking these religious questions? Would you dare? Would a single Muslim dare asking him, why are you asking these religious questions? No. Who do they ask? In me. Because they know in their heart that I'm speaking the truth. They all know it. They don't like the fact. It's either jealousy or simple hatred for Allah. They hate Quran. They want me to talk about everything but Quran and Hadith. Yet, that's the only place there is truth. Who doesn't know it? So here in this book, I think it's in the economics book, page 383, but I can confirm it. I outline the internal conflicts, internal inconsistency of those questions that Stephen Hawking is asking. He said, this is crazy. And we outline in 2012 in our book. What is the book on? Zero Waste Engineering. That's the engineering book. He's not an engineer, he's a scientist. So in our engineering book, we say, this is the way to ask questions. What is the first question?
How can we understand the world in which we find ourselves?
That's those guys. You can read it up. I have uploaded the thing. But the idea here is it has invaded contradictory premise. You're conflicting each other. It's a crazy stuff. So we said on the right, we said you have to clearly identify the purpose. Why are you asking this question? What do you get? See, otherwise, why it is important? If it is not, in purpose is not to find the truth is a Bani Israel question.
Hmm.
We are obliged to ask real question. We are obliged to avoid Bani Israel question. We are allowed to ask guiding question if you have knowledge, so they get to the truth. But we are forbidden to ask Bani Israel question. But our modern education system, only question we ask is Bani Israel question. That's why we're in a mess. So number 2, clearly identify first premise. Any question, what are you assuming? That's why that guy asks all this nonsensical question, and if you just ask first premise, they will cut. If there's a contradiction in your first premise, then you say, wow, that's not a real question. That's a Bani Israel question. Let me go back. Then you have to acknowledge the existence of real question, and conclusion is supported by guiding but open questions that precede the conclusion. Every time you find out with the research, you have to come up with real questions. Once you collect the real questions, that becomes your research questions. Answering them will give you the conclusion. Every time he comes to my office, I give him 5 questions at least. Real questions. Those questions, by the way, I do not know the answers to. That's why it's their guiding question. They will help you do research. Education is not about giving knowledge. Education is about stimulating their thought process. They can seek knowledge themselves, because knowledge seeking themselves is the obligation. Getting fatwa from Dr. Islam is not an obligation. As a matter of fact, it's nonsensical. Getting the questions and answering them yourselves from Quran and Hadith, from your thought process, is research. Otherwise, you're taking order from me. And that's not research at all.
Mr. Professor, our respected religion said that seeking the modern knowledge is not an obligatory thing.
Compulsory.
It is. Yeah. It is.
You see, this is a very interesting question. What is modern? You see, it has embedded assumptions. What is modern? Even assuming.
Related to for example, our living in this world.
Who said that?
Define the modern knowledge.
No,
Related to the time which where we exist.
You're talking about the hadith or Quranic verse.
No,
I'm telling.
I'm telling about for example, as you mentioned it, the shaitanic knowledge, for example, physics, chemistry, petroleum, and so on and so forth. But learning hadith, Quran, these are obligatory for every Muslim.
Why? Yeah, this is very good point. Why is it obligatory? Because no other place gives you the answer. So I give you a simple example, right? Quran 1736, and that's Quran directly, is telling you, do not advance, do not start unless you have full knowledge. See, every hadith, I told you before, every hadith has a backing in Quran, except for in first hadith, Bukhari's, because the word niyyah does not exist in Quran. And that's the pivotal, first one is the pivotal one.
But one thing to be clear, see, what Sir has elaborated from the first day till date, he is saying, he doesn't say that we do not need technology. We do not need, the knowledge which can benefit us to live here comfortably or facilitate or gives something to us in
It's
this
actually,
world.
it's an obligation.
Yeah,
We have
it's
to do it.
He says that it's an obligation, but the source for this knowledge should be from Quran and Hadith,
So it is sustainable. That's it.
so that it can be sustainable. Otherwise, it's not sustainable, and getting by the time, over the time, you
It is hurting us.
Yeah, hurting us.
Even West is telling you it's not sustainable, it is big mess. Sustainability is the biggest topic other than after population. So what is the Quran says, do not do anything unless you have full knowledge. Hadith says you must seek knowledge. Right? So if you cannot do anything before I have full knowledge, how do you even wake up? So you have to find out. Why am I waking up? You want to have a job. You have to find out what is the job description, because your purpose is to obey Allah with love. So you cannot just randomly say, I'm going to take this job. I'm going to his body is going. No, you're supposed to do nothing unless you make sure they have full knowledge. That's where it becomes an obligation. But to the point of technology development, it's an obligation. Why? Because it's killing us. You are doing defense research. Why? Because enemies are attacking all over. So it's an obligation. You have to find a solution. But it's also an obligation to make it sustainable, because you do not want to resort to haram. Right? And
What do you mean was sustainable?
what is sustainable?
Dawamdara.
Dawamdara kama mefhum dawamdara.
That's the
For
first day-
example, can we replace, for example, kerosene, or for example, the fuel of
easiest
an
one.
airplane?
That's the easiest one.
For
That's
example,
what-
how we can do?
I have
How
a
can we do?
800-page book on how to convert that. The petroleum, greening of petroleum operations in 2010. Every step.
But they also come from the devices, and we
No,
can
it
take
doesn't.
from.
It doesn't. That's the point. You see, you already assume that the only solution. By the way, that reminds me of very important thing. In the economics book, Economics of Intangible, we talk about Tina syndrome. Tina. Margaret Thatcher, do you know her name?
No.
Very evil Prime Minister of UK. She said there is no alternative. Democracy is not good, but there is no alternative. See, there is no alternative. So they tell you, the moment you say, oh, we're suffering, say, oh, this is the best you can do. Why? Remember, Shaitan introduced the Dalala. He already completed the Dalala part. Number 1, Dalala. Number 2,
Giving.
desire.
Yeah, desire.
Then change animals, and 4, change akhlaq of everything. So we're here. It's done. So now they'll tell you the medicine 1, medicine A, and medicine B. They will tell you democracy or kingdom. They will tell you is dollar or crypto. There is no alternative. So the ultimate scheme of Shaitan is to tell you you cannot do anything else. And the whole research is no, we do not accept anything from them. We know it came from honey to sugar to saccharin to aspartame. We want to get back what it was. We want to go back to the honey standard. Same with gold. Gold, coin, note, electronic.
Mr. Professor,
Yes.
there is some alternative, but it takes time.
Of course, everything has a fear. So can
Takes
you
time.
violate?
It takes time.
Yeah, can you violate? For me, it was the quickest thing. Do you know? I did not see a doctor for last 2 20 years, right? And I used to have a headache. And only thing I could do before, it's a classic thing. I used to have headache quite often, and I would ask, even in seminar, I would ask a student, do you have an aspirin or something like that? It was very common for me. Then I realized that there is acupuncture, there is acupressure massage, Chinese medicine, that cures in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. So whatever we have heard, it takes time. Even hijama. Now, do you remember I was walking very badly last 2 weeks ago. I could barely walk because I had the back, I pulled a muscle in the back. Go to the doctor, they give you pill, right? And then you do not feel the pain anymore, but it becomes chronic. I've done hijama on medical doctors, 30 years experience. They did operation. Medical doctor himself, they took operation, still there. I did that hijama. He said, Dr. Islam, 70% of it is gone. For the first time. He's a doctor himself. How long did it take? 3 minutes. So everything you have heard is a lie. And that's why I always say, where did you get it? Who told you? Because everything, we're surrounded by lies. So here I was completely given up. I completely gave up to shaitan with aspirin. And you know what I was doing even before fasting? I would take extra aspirin or Tylenol so I do not get headache in the afternoon during fasting. Never had it. Now if I have a headache, in few minutes I do those points, because you cannot do acupuncture. You can do massage like this, those points, it goes away. Hijama, my daughter does it for me instantly. There is a Chinese medicine book, it's called Emergency. What is the emergency practice of Prophet? What is the biggest emergency of humankind? Remember when Prophet Muhammad was injured? Can you think of a bigger emergency? Which medicine did he take? Did he say, take me to emergency, take me to Roman Empire? What is the second biggest one? When he has poison. What is the next biggest event? Omar was assassinated. Right? So we have these examples, and we say they are examples. We do not follow. Today, very sadly, there was a little girl who was, doctor said they have to do operation to change the bone. I said, Subhanallah, don't do it. I said, I was in Canada, I was in the West for 45 years. I have never seen such a thing. Doing operation on a bone for a child, 2-year-old. So what doctors are saying, so there's shaitan. It's like you go to a pork shop and say, is pork good for you? Of course he's going to say it's good for you because he's a pork man.
Yes.
But he said, oh, how do you know? I said, I have written 4 books on medical science. I said, can you find a doctor in the West who would double check? I said, yes. Oh, the way I said yes, he realized that it might be my student. I said, no, not your student. You see the point? Because your student might tell you the truth and you would not like the outcome. Because your iman is already in this shaitanic medicine. This morning I was waking up and I was told that they are going for the operation. I said, doctor, we need your prayer. I said, I have the message. It's so disappointing. I said, I'll pray, but it will be remiss if I don't tell you how disappointed I am. Why are they telling me now? Because I cannot stop. So, well, it's going to a we're going to a French clinic. I said, that's even worse. You're handing over to a kafir. And so because they care, the local ones, public ones don't care. So this is the status. We are told everything, but we are the first one to have iman on shaitan. First one, we do not question shaitan. Have you heard anybody saying that why is Stephen Hawking talking about religion? Have you heard? No. Have you ever heard why is Newton wrote so many books on so many articles on religion? He's a physicist, man, he should focus. They don't. But they tell me the Dr. Islam focus on engineering. Don't talk about Islam. I'm sorry, that's the only source I know. Nobody asked me that question when I was publishing in the US. Nobody asked me the question when I was lecturing in China. I have lectured in like 20 countries. I did the same lecture. Even my son said, Dad, is it possible that you changed? I said, no, I don't. Only thing I changed is, can you find another book that has the truth? And they admit. In China, it was very profound. After 5 days of lecturing, the guy comes to me and says, Dr. Islam, are you Buddhist? I said, why do you say that? I said, whatever you're teaching, we have it in our Buddhism. It's the same religion. You appeal to them. For Muslims, it doesn't appeal. They get offended. I told about this instance in Jordan. The guy attacked me. It's Americans and French. They were coming to my rescue. He has attacked me that as defaming Canada. I said, have you been to Canada? I said, yes, 6 months. In 6 months, he already became slave. And he's telling me I was the keynote speaker. That means I was the only speaker in the whole audience. And he's telling me that you're giving bad name to what? Islam. And he has been to Canada 6 months, and in 6 months, I have lived in Canada 45 years, but he knows he has become a slave in 6 months, and he's a long beard. So this is the status. So do not believe anything you have learned. Myself, I'm telling you, I learned nothing. What I have learned from school, I've learned nothing. And I have the best record. I stood first among 55,000 students. You know, in those days, there was the education board. First, in 55,000. I'm telling you today, I learned nothing.